The kitchen was dark, except for the fridge hum and a single stove light painting gold on the tile floor. I was at the counter, head bowed over a stack of clean dishes, when he came in. Jake dropped into my life 6 months ago, as a contractor fixing a persistent leak. He didn't knock. The pantry door clicked behind him, and the knife I held slipped from my fingers. He crossed the floor in 3 long strides, coat still damp from the rain he'd just chased off the porch. His hand pressed to the wall beside my head. The pressure came slow, deliberate. "Claire," he whispered, voice low enough I barely recognized that name on his lips. He tilted my chin, eyes dark pleading. My breath caught warmth, pooling low, the ache I'd buried for years pressing up. He moved behind me, then hands at my waist, one thumb brushing my hip bone. The damp of his jacket soaked through my sweater, a shock of cold that made me tremble. I twisted, pressing back against the edge of the counter, fingers gripping enamel. His other hand slid under my shirt, thumbs tracing ribs against skin that I hadn't shown anyone in months. The memory of his first look, the way he'd seen past my rolls, ignited a silent flame. Jake pressed forward, angle close, and too big for the narrow space. I gasped as the stretch surprised pain and pleasure. Together the counter's corner, digging under my thighs. He held me steady, chest against my back, breath hot at my ear. Each cautious thrust sent my pulse hammering against tile. My hands found his forearm's knuckles whitening, desperate for something solid, when everything inside me shook. Outside, thunder rolled across darkened clouds, rain hammering the window like applause. In the fridge glow, his silhouette was a storm, all its own broad shoulders, lean muscle beneath damp flannel, that look of craving and regret. He caught my soundless gasp with a kiss on my neck, lips rough scent of pine soap and wet jeans. Heat pooled as he pushed deeper, careful the kitchen shrinking, until nothing existed but breath and muscle and the hum of the old appliance. I never imagined I'd cross this line. At 42, I'd mastered the art of invisibility, mother-wife on autopilot, volunteer, the woman who ran her home as if it were a silent machine. Jake was the boy who'd shown up to fix my basement's leaking pipe, then stayed to help me sort boxes of wedding photos I'd hidden behind sweaters. His kindness was a key turned in a lock I'd forgotten existed. What would you do if the only person who made you feel real was the one you were never allowed to miss? His thrusts slowed as the ache built into something fierce release, collapsing me against cool tile beneath the stove light. My body trembled, hands shaking against his arms. Somewhere behind us, the front door clicked open, a reminder that the life I'd lived in quiet routine was a breath away from shattering. If you've ever lived a life where everything looked perfect, but felt painfully quiet, this story may echo more than you expect. Like and subscribe if these truths deserve space. The more you stay, the more these stories find the ones who need them. Mornings start before dawn. I'm up at 5:30 loading laundry while the house still sleeps. The dishwasher hums with overnight cycles, coffee machine gurgles on autopilot, and the dog circles for breakfast. By 6, I'm packing lunches, turkey sandwiches, cut diagonally, carrot sticks in baggies, his favorite granola bar, tucked beside a note. My son, 15, grabs the bag without looking eyes on his phone. "See you, Mom," he mumbles then, out the door. I close it gently. Silence filling the hall again. I heat kale and rice for myself, easy no flavor to distract. On weekdays, my husband's gone by 7 for the office in another county. His travel schedule grew steeper after the promotion, so most nights I fall into bed alone, the empty side cold against my hip. The house stays too quiet, a shell echoing with chores I do, on loop dishes, vacuuming, switching towels from washer to dryer. Jake arrived 3 months ago to fix the mold in our basement, persistent leak behind the laundry. He was early 20s, then boots splashing through the puddle's toolbox, bulging with unfamiliar gadgets. His smile was polite, nodding to my story about water damage, then cracking a joke to lighten the damp chill. He worked steady, never rushed catching stray drips, even after the pipe was sealed. I watched him through the doorway, arms folded, feeling something stir I'd long forgotten. He came back every 2 weeks to check moisture levels, then offered to hang my son's framed posters in the rec room, no charge. I hesitated, then handed him the hammer. The drill's whine felt too loud in my living room until he tossed down the remotes, stepped forward, and placed hands on each wall, anchor, steadying my breath. Evenings I'd find him lingering by the kitchen sink as I washed dishes, the hum of the fridge a low buzz from the stove clock, everything blurred until I saw him there, leaning in the dim light. He'd ask how my day went, not in passing, but waiting for my answer. I'd shrug, pretend my life was too full with homemaking to feel empty. He'd study my face, say you make it look easy, and I'd nod tone flat. But his eyes warmed me. Nights in the garage turned routine. I'd sort holiday boxes, he'd carry them to the attic, via the narrow stair. Single bare bulbs swung overhead shadows flicking on my paint cans. He'd whisper reminders. Watch your step, and our shoulders touched in the cramped space. Heat pooled low, my heart stumbling over its own echo. Once during a thunderstorm, I found him in the microwave's glow, transferring frozen meals to the fridge. Rain slashed windows. The house's dim kitchen felt small secret. He turned eyes catching the light, a flicker of something unnameable passing between us. He offered me tea, Earl Grey steam tumbling from the mug, held it out, fingertips brushing mine. I froze, tasted longing on my tongue. The way he sees me isn't mother or wife or volunteer, it's Claire, the woman who taught art classes and ran bake sales, who still wears her hair loose when she's alone. He notices the fine lines at my eyes, the way I hesitate when I laugh, the bruise on my wrist from leaning too hard on the drawer. I feel exposed, vulnerable, but also remarkably real. Late one evening, I caught my reflection in the window over the sink, loose waves, framing a face I barely recognized, eyes bright, lips parted, as if about to speak something true. The house was silent, except for the fridge's hum. I touched my reflection and thought, if I'm only alive in these half-lit moments with him, what does that say about all the rest of my days? Jake showed up almost every evening, now timing his errands, so he'd arrive just after dinner when the kitchen was full of plate clatter and the dog's sharp nose nudging my leg. One wet Tuesday, I was unloading groceries out back, bags dripping in the lantern glow, when I heard his truck idling. Rain should have driven him off, but he climbed out jacket hood down, hair plastered to his forehead. I dropped a can of beans. It rattled on the concrete. He crossed the wet grass without hesitation. "Let me help," he said, voice steady over the drip from the porch roof. He carried the heavy bag inside. I followed, watching the reflection of his broad back in the sliding glass door. The kitchen light was warm against the dark window. The fridge hummed like a lullaby. We set the groceries on the island, canned soup, fresh bread, my son's favorite cold cuts. My hands trembled as I unpacked. He stood too close, shoulder brushing mine, when he passed the basket breath, soft against my neck. I felt a jolt low in my belly and had to turn away, catch my breath. The moment slipped into the hum of the fridge and the soft scratch of rain against stone. Later, after the dishes, I retreated to the living room with a book. The TV was on mute, casting flickering blue across the room. He knocked once, then eased inside, coffee mug in hand. I patted the cushion beside me. We sat in silence, the only sound the click of my lid turning pages. His hand hovered near mine, on the armrest, thin margin, but electric. I closed my book, heart slamming. He lifted fingers, traced the line of my hand thumb, brushing my knuckle. I still fold his laundry every week. And I did this. I whispered, voice brittle. He didn't let go, only nodded, eyes soft. Weeks folded into each other like a slow, dangerous dance. He'd arrive when lights were dim, offering small kindnesses, Extra blankets, fresh muffins, a patient ear. I craved them more than I admitted, craving him in the corners he filled. In the narrow hallway outside my daughter's room, he'd linger to flip off the hall light. We'd brush past shoulders grazing, and I felt his pulse in my own skin. One night I caught him leaning against the wall where moonlight slanted through the window, his gaze fixed on my flushed cheek, his lips parted almost a question. Then he straightened pale in the glow and walked on without a word. More often we found ourselves in the kitchen, that space of humming appliances and low light. I'd stir soup on the stove steam, fogging my glasses. He'd appear with a fresh spoon and warm smile. His eyes searched mine as I tasted the broth. One evening I tasted salt, not from the soup, but from tears I hadn't known I was crying. He set the spoon down, wet towel in hand, pressed it to my cheek. "Do you ever feel like no one sees you anymore?" he asked. I swallowed. I kept thinking it would go away, that I'd forget what you look like when you're tired. He only nodded, pressing the towel firmer. Our touches grew bolder. At the sink, rinsing the last plate, I'd feel his hand at the small of my back, guiding me as we carried heavy dishes together. His palm warm his body so close I could count the hairs at the nape of his neck. The hum of water and the narrow counter space intensified every breath, every inch. My pulse pounded like the faucet drip, and all I could think was how long I'd waited to feel seen. One night, after a late storm, the power blinked out. In the hallway, only the emergency light glowed just enough for us to see each other's faces. He reached for the breaker box key at my waist. I felt the brush of his fingers through my nightshirt. I held still, not wanting to break the spell. He flipped the switch, lights roared back. I turned, breath caught, and locked eyes with him in the sudden brightness. Two people standing too close, the rest of the house forgotten. In the microwave door that same night, I caught my reflection, shoulders slumped, lips parted, eyes wide. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Jake's silhouette appeared behind me, breath warm against my ear. His hand settled on my waist, firm, claiming. I closed my eyes and leaned back into him, not sure if I was collapsing or finally waking up. A week after the breaker incident, I found myself standing in the garage, long past midnight, fluorescent overhead bulb, flickering as rain drummed the roof. I was sorting holiday boxes. Santa hats, fake snow, tangled lights, when I heard the side door click. Jake stood there, hood dripping, hands shoved deep into coat pockets. His face was pale in the harsh light. "I couldn't stop thinking about you," he said, stepping inside. He closed the door behind him. Water pooled around his boots. The garage smelled of motor oil and damp cardboard, every scent sharper in the enclosed space. I dropped the pine garland I'd been holding. It rattled on the concrete. He moved toward me without hesitation. I felt the heat rise in my chest. His eyes searched mine until I thought I'd drown in them. Then he reached out, brushing a lock of hair from my forehead. My breath caught. I leaned into his hand. He pressed his palm to my cheek, warm, steady, and I felt everything I'd kept buried stir. He backed me against the old workbench, legs braced on either side of mine. The wood was rough against my thighs, through thin pajamas. His hands were at my waist, thumbs tracing circles over my shirt. I trembled, every nerve alive. Rain rattled the single-pane window. Fluorescent hum pulsed overhead. "I've wanted this for months," he whispered, voice raw. I didn't reply. His other hand dipped below my shirt, fingers brushing my skin. The touch was both electric and familiar, like finding the missing piece of a puzzle I didn't know I'd lost. I gasped, tilting my head back against the bench. He pressed forward, testing the resistance. My hands shot up to his chest, gripping fabric as heat pooled low. His chest was broad under the drenched flannel. I felt his heart beating strong and insistent. He leaned in, mouth capturing mine in a kiss that tasted of storm air and unspoken yearning. I clung to him, envy of his jacket for being pressed so close. His hands moved to the waistband of my pajama pants. I hesitated just a fraction, then let him guide me. Every inch of contact was a confession. My hips lifted, meeting his advance, the workbench edge pressing cold against my back. He positioned himself and entered slow seeking, as though mapping every curve. Pain lanced then mellowed into deep warmth. I bit back a cry, fists tensing on his arms. He held me as he moved each thrust, deliberate, not frantic an exploration born of restraint. The fluorescent light flickered again. Shadows danced across our bodies. He bent his head to my neck, exhaling against my skin. I shivered, forgetting the years of silence in that single moment. His rhythm deepened slow and steady. I closed my eyes, breath-catching as he found the spot that made my knees weak. The garage smelled of wet earth and tool grease. I felt both wrecked and whole. His name slipped from my lips, a prayer. He answered with a groan, hips driving, until my world narrowed to the press of flannel. The hum of the bulb, the storm outside. Pleasure built like tidewater, low and inevitable. I clutched his shoulders, nails grazing skin through cloth, until the cliff broke release, crashing through me, tremors rippling from core to fingertips. Jake followed with a stuttered exhale, body tensing, then slackening inside me. We sagged together, breath-heavy rains echo in the rafters. He eased out, lingering inside a moment, before sliding free. The ache of emptiness came swift. I leaned back, forehead resting on the bench. He knelt, pulling my pants back into place, every movement tender. I felt raw and exposed. When he stood, he caught my gaze in the dull light. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice cracking. I pressed a hand to his cheek, rough stubble-wet hair, and shook my head. "Don't be," I said, voice small but steady. He helped me off the bench arms around my waist. Outside, the storm eased into soft patter. I held onto him as though I might float away without his steadiness. In the flash of headlights, I hadn't realized his truck had pulled in. He kissed my temple warm and fierce before slipping into his coat. I watched him climb into the cab, heart pounding. The engine rumbled to life. The garage door remote clicked, and light spilled through the frame as he disappeared down the drive. The bulb overhead buzzed once, then settled into a steady glow. Inside the silent garage, I slid to the floor legs folded beneath me, chest heaving. The workbench was splintered in places, toolboxes lining the walls, silent witnesses to what happened here. I closed my eyes, tasting storm on my tongue and something dangerous on my skin. Sunday morning, the house felt too bright, as if every sunbeam judged me for what I'd done in the garage. I unstacked plates from the dishwasher on autopilot, each clink echoing like a reminder. My daughter bounded into the kitchen, nose pressed to the fridge glass, asking about waffles. I managed a smile, and waffles appeared frozen reheated, not the careful batter I used to make. She didn't notice eyes on her phone, instead scrolled past a photo of Jake's truck, stamped in mud. Later, I folded towels in the laundry room, pulling shirts soft from the dryer. One of his work shirts, flannel I'd washed for him after he left, lay on top. My fingers traced the seam at the cuff. Guilt knotted my gut. I thought I'd run that load twice. I dropped the shirt into a keep-separate pile, hands shaking so hard I nearly pressed delicate on the dryer. By Monday, I deleted his number from my favorites. He'd texted Friday afternoon. "Can we talk?" But I ignored it. The unanswered message hung between us like a crack in the kitchen tile. That night, I dreamed he tapped my shoulder in the hallway. Voice low. "You okay?" I woke alone, tangled in sheets, the echo of wrenching metal still thrumming in my veins. Tuesday. I watched for his truck in the driveway. It never came. I cleaned out the mudroom closet, tossing old tennis shoes, and a broken golf club no one used, as if clearing space might erase the memory. The electric hum of the garage door opener grated in my head each time I tested the button. No answer. Wednesday evening, I heard rain against the window and tiptoed to the kitchen sink. The faucet drip matched the beat of my heart. I reached for a mug, and the cabinet door creaked. Jake's lone coffee cup perched on the top shelf, still dry inside. My palms stung where his fingers had brushed mine. I shut the cabinet, rattling the plates, and fled back to the living room where the TV glowed too loud. Thursday, my husband walked in, early flight cancelled again. His suitcase landed with a heavy thud, snapping me from the haze. He kissed my forehead, asked about the laundry. I lied through gritted teeth. All done. He noticed the twitch in my hand when I pulled the towels from the basket, but said nothing. I poured wine for us both, hoping the buzz would blur the edges of my guilt. Friday afternoon, I found him in the garage. My breath caught before I called his name. He was leaning over the workbench, sanding the splintered edge I'd marked with damp fingerprints. My hands clutched the laundry basket. He straightened, face contrite. "I'm sorry," he said, voice soft. My chest tightened. I swallowed. Me too. He placed the sander down, wiped sawdust from his palms. I saw no judgment in his eyes, only worry. "Can we pretend it didn't happen?" he asked. I shook my head. "No." The word tumbled out raw. He blinked, hurt, flashing. "I'll stay away," he whispered. The hammer in my hand slipped. I caught it before it fell. "No," I repeated, voice shaking. He exhaled hurt and relief, mixing in his eyes. "What do you want?" I couldn't answer, didn't dare. That night we avoided each other under the same roof. I scoured recipes, tried new dinners to feel useful. My husband ate quietly, glancing at me over the casserole. Jake's empty tool belt sat by the front door, a hollow echo in the hallway. Saturday morning, the neighborhood barbecue rattled my windows. I forced myself into the sunlit yard, greeted neighbors, smiled at children chasing sprinklers. I watched Jake carry a tray of brownies to the picnic table, his mother's recipe, she said, and felt my pulse spike. He moved like a stranger in my world, cautious, apologetic. My husband clapped him on the shoulder, thanked him for helping with the lawn. Jake offered a tight grin, then glanced at me just a flicker before stepping back. My stomach lurched. Everywhere I went, I saw him shadow across the fence scuff mark on my porch, the scent of sawdust in my own living room. That night, I sat on the couch while my husband watched TV. I turned the volume low, tuned out the remote clicks. My phone buzzed. "I saw you at the barbecue." My heart hammered. I tapped ignore, then delete. He texted again. "I can't stop thinking about you." I powered down the phone, stood in the dark hallway outside my daughter's room. The house slept. I pressed my palm to the door, hearing her breathing steady. Secrecy felt safer there. Sunday dawned humid. I folded sheets in the guest room, smelling cotton bright as memory. Outside, the dog barked, Mark's dog, in the neighbor's yard, probably lost. I dragged the sheets down the hall, set them on my bed. Through the window, I saw headlights on our street, then recognized his truck. My hands froze mid-fold. He parked, engine idling. My heart raced. I told myself I'd moved on, but saw him step out, coat slick with dew, and cross the lawn. I set the sheets aside and opened the door. His face was careful, hopeful. He held something, a small bouquet of daisies, my mother's favorite. "I thought you'd like these," he said. I blinked back tears. "You should go," I whispered. His shoulders slumped. "I know," he said, but I had to try. He set the flowers on the porch railing, glanced at my open door, shadows flickering across his face. "I wish I didn't need you," he said, "but I do." My knees buckled, guilt and longing tangled. I closed the door before I could say the wrong thing. Inside, the daisies wilted in the morning light, petals drooping like heavy lids. I swept them into the trash, later stem by stem. Their scent lingered on my fingers. I washed my hands twice, but the ache stayed. Monday morning, my daughter hugged me too tight. I felt my ribs press bruised from too many stolen moments. She asked why my eyes were red. I said, "Spring allergies." She believed me. I hoped no one else would see the tremor in my smile. I told myself I was healing, but this might be another kind of wound. That Tuesday, our dinner table felt like a stage. The late afternoon sun slanted through lace curtains, throwing jagged light across plates of roasted chicken and mashed potatoes. My daughter chatted about her art class. My husband exchanged business news. I sat at the head, hands folded, tasting gravy I couldn't swallow. The hush between us pulsed louder than the cicadas outside. I caught movement in the window's reflection. Jake's truck idling across the street. I told myself it was coincidence he parks there sometimes when his father's home, but my heart lurched. My husband asked if I needed more bread. I nodded, voice tight. I excused myself, telling them to finish dinner without me, and slipped out the side door. The front porch was steeped in dusk-orange sky, bleeding into purple. Jake leaned against his truck, hands in pockets, eyes to the ground. Rain from last night still beaded the windshield. I crossed the yard boots, crunching on gravel, each step echoing my guilt. He looked up, breath-catching in the cool air. "You came out," he said, as though surprised. His voice trembled. I didn't speak, just stood under the porch light, feeling its glow too bright against my shame. Behind me, house lights dimmed my daughter, tucking in my husband washing dishes. The world stayed inside, while we stood in twilight. Two people on opposite sides of what we'd done. "I tried to stay away," he began, "but I saw your porch light." He paused, searching my face. I can't keep pretending it was just one time. The hush settled between us like a verdict. I swallowed, tasting salt from tears I wouldn't let fall. "Jake," I whispered, voice cracking. "You shouldn't be here." My words landed heavy. He took a step closer, gravel crunching underfoot. "I know," he said, "but I needed to see you one more time." His eyes glinted with regret and raw need. I held my ground, guilt and longing warring inside me. This isn't going to end the way we want. The honesty tasted bitter. He closed the distance cloak of night swallowing us. His hand drifted to my cheek, so gentle it hurt. "I reached for you like a lifeline," he said softly, "but maybe I was drowning too." His gaze brimmed with unshed tears. I trembled under his touch, aching with the truth. I nodded, tears slipping free. "And I'd do it again," I admitted, voice barely above the whistle of wind through the eaves. The confession hung in the air, exposing both our scars. He pressed his forehead to mine, breath mingling. "Then we're damned," he murmured. "Damned, and together." My heart clenched. Behind us, the porch light flickered my husband's return. We heard screen door click, footsteps on the deck. Jake's hand froze against my skin. Mine tightened around his wrist. The back door creaked open. My husband stood there, tie-loose sleeves rolled, face drained of color. He saw us, Jake's truck in the lamplight, us locked together like fugitives. Silence roared. Jake released me, stepping back, coat collar up. I watched his silhouette in the yellow glow, familiar and forbidden. My husband's gaze shifted between us. Confusion and hurt colliding. I swallowed, voice failing. Jake cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," he said, looking at my husband. Then to me, "Goodbye, Claire." He turned, boots scraping, and disappeared into the deepening dusk. My husband hovered in the doorway, eyes on me. "Who was that?" he asked, voice careful. I couldn't look away from where Jake had stood. I traced the empty space on my cheek, warm where his touch had been, and answered, "Someone I shouldn't have wanted." The words trembled out, unfiltered and raw. Inside the house felt too bright and too quiet. My daughter peeked around the corner, alarm in her gaze. I managed a small smile, what smile I could give, and let them both in. The door clicked shut on the dark porch, sealing us inside a world forever changed. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't mean for him to matter, but for one night, I remembered how it feels to be touched, like I'm still here.